welcome to worship with Eliot Unitarian Chapel. Wherever you're tuning in from, near or far, we're so glad that you're here. I am Eliot's lead minister, the Reverend Barbara Gadon, and I hope that this is a service that nurtures your spirit. If you are new to Eliot Chapel, we are an intentional community that welcomes all races, genders, and all sexual orientations. We welcome people of all creeds and beliefs, all economic circumstances, and all types of families. Our vision is to create a just world through vibrant, beloved community. If you would like to connect with us and learn more about our congregation, please look for information at the end of the service.
Morally, I was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society, and it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons. And I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
There is no freedom, the wise man said, let justice roll down when the poor cry out for shelter and bread. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary? Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Hatred will never drive out hate. Let love roll down. Remember, our hearts can make us great. Let love roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let your love roll down like a mighty stream. When brutality threatens our daughters and sons, let peace roll down. May our voices rise up louder than the guns. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Step by step, one by one, let justice roll down. They can kill the prophet, but the dream lives on. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let justice roll down like a mighty stream.
I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? In these days, we find ourselves too often stuck with these questions on repeat. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? We grasp at signs and markers, articles of news and analysis, as if we could prepare, as if life had ever made any promises of making sense or turning out the way we'd thought, as if we are not also actors in this unfolding story. For this hour, we gather to surrender to the mystery to release ourselves from the needing to know, the yearning to have it already figured out, and also the burden of believing that we either have all the control or none. Here in our song and our silence, our stories and our sharing, we make space for a new breath, a new healing, a new possibility to take root, even now. That is courage, forged in the fire of our coming together and felt in the spirit that comes alive in this act of faith, that we believe still a new world is possible, that we are creating it already here and now. Come, let us worship.
A spark of hope. If ever there were a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice.
Let freedom span both east and west, and love both south and north, in universal fellowship throughout the whole wide earth. In beauty, wonder everywhere, let us communion find. Compassion be the golden cord close binding humankind. Beyond all barriers of race, of color, caste, or creed, let us make friendship, human worth, our common faith and deed. Then east and west will meet and share, and south shall build with north, one human commonwealth of good throughout the whole wide earth.
Our story today is called Not My Idea, a book about whiteness, written and illustrated by Anastasia Higginbottom. Now, before we begin, I have a couple of things to say. One is that the book says that it's written for kids that are 8 to 12 years old, but I think that younger kids and older kids have something that they can get out of it too. And the other thing is that the book is written kind of to white kids or about white kids, but if you're not a white kid looking at this, I'm really interested in what you think about it too. So here we go. When grown-ups try to hide scary things from kids, and the mom says, "Oh no, not again." "What, Mom? What, not again?" It's usually because they're scared too. "Who is that with their hands up? Why is that policeman screaming at him?" "Bang, bang, 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 bang." They want to bury the truth. They might say, "You don't need to worry about this. You're safe. Understand?" And you might think, "No." They might say, "Our family is kind to everyone. We don't see color." But deep down, we all know that color matters. Skin color makes a difference in how the world sees you and in how you see the world. And they're going into a little store, and the mom says, I want to buy my aunt a gift. This will only take a minute. It makes a difference, skin color does. It makes a difference in how much trouble seems to find you or let you be. See how when he's looking at the little boy who is a child of color and maybe not looking at her? The security guard looking which way, looking at the little boy. In stores, in cars, on sidewalks, at school, your skin color affects the most ordinary daily experiences, including which neighborhoods welcome you. Now they're at the aunt's house. So relieved you got here safely. And the mom says, well, why wouldn't we? The aunt says, the protests. And this looks like maybe the uncle watching the protests on TV. Oh, they're blocking the road. You may get the message that racism is happening only to Black and brown people. Racism is a white person's problem, and we are all caught up in it. And we handle it in different ways. Might say, I can't watch the news, or that police officer was just doing his job. And we might handle it mostly by refusing to look at it. Come away from the TV now. Look, I made your favorite. But you can face this. Understanding the truth takes courage, especially a painful truth about your own people, maybe your own family. Are you all right? Even people you love may behave in ways that show that they think they are the good ones. And you see how she's locking the car door and clutching onto her purse when she sees a Black child in the street. Racism was not your idea. You don't have to defend it. You can bring your curiosity to learn about it and see that it's true. You see the book on the rug there? It says, Our Shared History. In the United States of America, white people have committed outrageous crimes against Black people for 400 years. All along, every step of the way, though, people who love justice and love each other have been fighting back. Many white people did things they never should have done. Denied opportunity, like bank loans, denied housing, like turning people out of their homes or evicting them, like denying voting rights. Many other white people failed to see the problem with this. And you see, exploited the love and labor of Black women. These choices put wealth and power into white hands, homes, and neighborhoods. Some white people joined the leaders of Black liberation. And you see the Angelina and Sarah Grimke sisters in 1838, abolitionist suffragist sisters. In 1963, Julian Bond and members of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Liberation, if you don't know it, that word means love and freedom. You have Nina Simone in 1967. Nuns and fellow marchers on the Selma to Montgomery March in 1965. And Unitarians and Universalists went on that march too. You see John Lewis and fellow demonstrators kneel in 1962. And there's Colin Kaepernick kneels in 2017. You might have seen that on TV and heard people talking about it. These are all important ways to fight back against racism. Racism is still happening. It keeps changing and keeps being the same. sigh. And yet, just being here, alive in this moment, you have a chance to care about this, to connect. But connecting means opening, and opening sometimes feels like breaking. It's okay to feel hurt about this. It's hard. Mom, I don't feel good. Uh-oh, should I pull over? I need to know what's going on. What are you talking about? Why didn't anyone teach me real history? I do see color. I see yours, mine, and everybody's. You can't hide what's right in front of me. I know that what that police officer did was wrong. Go with your instincts on this one. Racial justice is possible. Okay, geez, you don't have to yell, but only if we're honest with each other and ourselves. I see a playground over there. Want to get some air? Yes. Your history is not all written yet. What do you want it to say? The end.
From Claudia Rankine's Just Us. There is resignation in my voice when I say I feel myself slowing down, gauging like a machine the levels of my response. I remain within, so sore I think there is no other way than release. So I ask questions like I know how, in the loneliness of my questioning. What still is true, there isn't even a tremor when one is so historied out. I could build a container to carry this being, a container to hold all, though we were never about completeness. We were never to be whole. I stand in your considered thoughts, also broken, also unknown, extending one sentence here. I am here. As I've known you, and as I'll never know you. I am here. Whatever is being expressed, what if? I am here awaiting, waiting for you. In the what if, in the questions, in the conditionals, in the imperatives. What if?
I invite you now to join me in a time of prayer and meditation. If you wish to, you may plant your feet flat on the floor. Straighten your spine. Take a few deep and full breaths. And hear these words. Gracious and loving God, Spirit of life and love, we come together today longing for hope. We come today weary and longing for rest. We come today hungry for a good word. This has been a time of fear and anger. In our country, we are still living with what we never wanted to see. People planning violence in the capital of our country, coming equipped to do harm, being invited to do harm and allowed to do harm, boldly flying the banner of white supremacy. We were shocked and angry, and we still are. And we fear that there will be more. In our country, in our homes, in all the world, we are bone weary with a plague that will not quit. We are waiting to see one another, hug one another, cherish one another in person. This will end, we know, and we are weary of waiting. And yet, Spirit of life, love which holds us. We come in reverence and thanks for you. We are grateful for the gift of another breath and for each moment of connection, beauty, and truth. Cry with us in our pain for the world. Remind us that we are loved just as we are. Remind us that we are connected with all that is. Remind us that we do not journey alone. Give us what we need for today. Call us back to our promises, commitments, and values. Help us to love ourselves and each other, and to show that love in our actions. Make us instruments of justice, equity, and compassion. Free us from all that is evil. We declare that life and love are stronger than tyranny and fear, that a world of beauty and love is coming, and we must shape it together. May it be so. And I invite you now just to sit for a moment with those words, with that hope, with whatever tiny flicker of faith you have, and know that we are with you. Amen.
We have a long-standing tradition at Eliot Chapel of sharing our Sunday collection with an organization in our community. And this month, we are sharing our plight with the Meacham Park Neighborhood Improvement Association. Meacham Park is a predominantly African-American community in Kirkwood. Even before Meacham Park was annexed to Kirkwood in the 90s, an intentionally diverse group of Meacham Park and Kirkwood residents formed to advocate for Meacham Park. And Eliot Chapel has long ensured that we have one of our members at the table so that we are always ready to lend a hand and to be part of the solution. When I asked Harriet Patton, president of the association, what it meant for our congregation to make this long-standing commitment, this is what she shared.
It would be a blessing from heaven. A blessing. Because we don't have any church that said we will commit to doing that.
The Neighborhood Improvement Association offers college scholarships and many programs for students, such as a STEM workshop in the spring, Pride in the Park in the summer, school supplies in the fall, and they sponsor 20 families at Christmas. But this has been a very difficult year for Meacham Park. We know that COVID-19 has hit the Black community harder than anyone else, and so has the resulting economic hardship. Their well-loved Martin Luther King event usually pays for most of their programs, and it has been canceled. So we at Eliot Chapel have decided to step up our game. Our goal is to raise $3,000 through our shared plate this month for the Meacham Park Neighborhood Improvement Association, and this will help them continue to serve Meacham Park families, as they always have. I'll let President Harriet Patton have the last word.
And our slogan is to come together, work together, but stay together. And I want to share that with you, your congregation, and know that is evidence in the things we do and not just the things we say. I look forward to seeing you again in the future. I look forward to sharing positive outcomes and positive joining together with that same triangle. Come together, work together, stay together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Martin Luther King celebration with Eliot Chapel. I'd like to first thank you for inviting me to this virtual event. I can think of no better person to honor on this day in depth than Dr. Martin Luther King. It is important, even during these times, that we remember after the assassination of Dr. King, it took 15 years to get this day we now are able to celebrate at a federal level. I think that's important because as we work for change here in St. Louis and around the world, one of the things that will be important for us to remember is that the work has to be done. We have to be diligent and we have to be strategic and work together. I think it's also important for those people who were alive when Dr. King was preaching and touring the country and world, that many of us, including myself, have no context for that. The only Dr. Martin Luther King we know is the one that we learned about in school. The name of today's session is A Tough Mind and a Tender Heart. I can't think of a better time than to talk about that. The toughness of mind means that we are brave and that we are going to ask difficult questions, but also work together to find the solutions. And I think that just thinking about us all working together to find the solutions brings me joy. It is why being in community, in a church setting, in a neighborhood, in a book club, all resonates with each one of us, because one of the things that we are committed to do as people of faith is to work to find solutions to some of the hardest and most difficult problems. This is a time that we will need a tough mind. This is a time that we will need each other. I encourage you and other people to reach for one another during this time. This is known as a day of service. Sometimes the service that is also warranted is the service of care, the care for ourselves and for other people, our loved ones around us. An act of resistance, an act of liberation, an act of activism also means that self-care has to be part of our conversation. And so I don't want to lose that as we talk about how to do this work together. The important part from a generational perspective about not knowing or remembering when Dr. Martin Luther King was alive, or being alive for that matter, when Dr. Martin Luther King was alive, is because in context, if you were here, then you were a witness. You got to witness his joy, his beauty, his words. You got to watch him on television. And you were also a witness to huge changes here in the United States, monumental changes in the United States. There's something about witnessing that allows us to know. We become knowers because we were there, right? But for those of us who were not there, it will be important that the people who witness such change support and uplift the changes that we will need in the coming future. The changes that the young people are trying to make the world a better place. It isn't that we can't all be active, but the active that we are might look different. I would encourage us to all be active. Martin Luther King Day is one of the largest days of service throughout the United States. And so although we can't be together because of COVID, and we can't be in schools or churches or synagogues or other places where we might gather to be with people, virtually, we will figure out how to be of service to other people. And staying in this process does require that we have a toughness of mind. As people understand that they were witnesses to Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy, and many of us were not, it will be important that we also share the storytelling, not the storytelling where you were there with him and you marched beside him and maybe you even called him a time or two, but the storytelling that allows us to know that God is real, that change is inevitable, and more importantly, now than ever, we need each other in community. It also reminds us of the toughness of mind as I think about Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy of working for change that seemed impossible impossible. Impossible. It seemed like the Jim Crow laws would stay forever. Racial segregation, not just on buses, but in schools, and everything would stay forever. And he had the toughness of mind to know that it could be changed. It will be important that we also have that same toughness as we are looking for police reform, as we are increasing the diversity of honors classes in schools, as we look towards our community and work towards racial justice and racial healing. It is the artist's lens of being able to create something we've not yet seen. And that requires us asking hard questions. That requires us taking a risk to maybe be disappointed, but also to be victorious. And so there is winning with the toughness of mind, because we were brave enough to ask the question. We dared to ask the question, to work for solutions, and to make the impossible possible. And because some of us who are watching this video right now were there, they were witnesses, they know that the impossible is actually possible. I call these individuals the believers. And it will be important that we constantly remind each other that the change that we would like to see in the world is very possible. Not only is it possible, it is inevitable. The second part of this conversation is a tender heart. As we witness the things that we have witnessed these past couple of weeks, it will be important that we have a tender heart. It is easy to harden our hearts. It is easy to walk away. It is easy even to question in these times, where is God? But a tender heart is also a forgiving heart. It is one that asks deeper questions of why, how did this happen, and what can we do differently? A tender heart is one that is forgiving and loving. It doesn't mean it's forgetful, but it does mean that we are looking for the ways in which people, kind of in the parable of the lost sheep, got lost. We are also then looking for ways to bring people closer to one another. Yes, even the people that stormed the Capitol. We are looking for ways to bring those individuals together so that we can create the kind of world we'd all like to see. The kind of world that when we shut our eyes one day, we can say, job well done. I think it is only our duty. I think it is solemnly our responsibility to make sure that we continue these conversations and this message as we go forward with Dr. Martin Luther King. In his talk, A Tough Mind and Tender Heart, he calls on us, Dr. King calls on us, to think about the way in which our faith guides our conversation, the way in which our faith moves the conversation from following what is easy, which he calls a weak mind, and hardening ourselves to say this is impossible or I don't like those individuals. And so I ask everyone who is watching this video to think about the things, the outreach that we could do. As we think about days of service, that doesn't mean charity. That means that we will work together for racial justice and racial equity. There is always something that we could do. There is always something that we can improve. There is much work to be done. And so whether you choose to work with children around racial justice and equity, or work on bills to reform our police department, or work on healthcare, mental health, health equity, work on neighbors, work on being neighborly, there's always something that we can do. As we discuss having a tough mind during this time, I want us to think about the times that it is mentioned in the Bible. There are lots of parables that talk about having a tough mind. The first one that comes to mind, of course, is the Good Samaritan. It is the one that Dr. King also talks about in his speech. And he talks about it because in a global pandemic like COVID-19, these are the moments of having enough faith that we will come through this pandemic, but also understanding the need for each other, the need for not living our lives in a scarcity model, but in a model of abundance. It is really where our faith kicks in believing that there is not only enough, but enough will be provided, not just for us, but for everyone in our community. It also is a time that we get to talk about what faith looks like and how to act our faithful acts out. It is a moment to notice that it isn't just the tough-mindedness of being savvy or knowledgeable about something, but to also have a tender heart to share those resources with other people. As we think about this in the context of racial justice, which I think we should on this day, it means that not only might we notice the privileges that we have, but be able to allow access and entry into those systems that may target people of color, African Americans in particular. It is being able to ask those difficult questions of, can we live in a world where people, unarmed Black people, are not shot by law enforcement? Can we live in a world where Black children receive equitable education? Can we live in a world during a major global pandemic where Black people are not afraid to go to the hospital and afraid, because of the past historical racism within healthcare, to take the vaccine? These are the moments where not only we will need a tough mind, but we will need to lead with a tender heart. We will need to lead with compassion. I would offer that if Dr. Martin Luther King were here, he would ask us to do similar things for what happened with the Capitol. It is easy to turn our backs on people who don't look like us. It is easy to turn our backs on people who are not saying the things that we are saying or acting in the ways that we would like them to act, or that we might think that we might act. It is easy to sit in criticism and critique and in judgment of other people. That is definitely not led with a tender heart. In order to see the changes that we would like to see, it will take compassion. It will take us asking the questions of, how did my brother or sister get there? It will take us asking the questions of what prevents us from having equity in every system that we are part of, in our housing patterns. It will take us asking the questions of, is race in the room? And when the answer is yes, to define how it has defined this United States caste system that has relegated people with dark skin, with Black skin, to a lower class. We will need a tough mind in order to overcome those challenges. We will need everyone on deck, all hands on deck, to find those solutions. And we will need a tender heart to, instead of pushing people away, bring them even closer to us. When I think about this in the context of God, I think about it in the tough-mindedness of God that he has for each one of us. The unresolved, the clarity that he has that each one of us was built to make a difference, to change the world, to impact the lives of other people. That never is there a question about that, even when we ourselves question it, even when we ourselves fall prey to having a weak mind, doubting not only ourselves, but the higher power. That we fall into our weak-minded moments when it's just easy to let it go, when it's easier to give an excuse of why something horrific has happened, when it's easier to just push people away because they're not like us, or I don't want to be associated with them. I would offer that that is the lens of a weak mind. A tough mind means that the love that God has for us, we extend to other people. But the same kind of grace and compassion that he has for us. Each one of us has made mistakes along the way. Each one of us has doubted. Each one of us has been on a journey around racial justice and racial equity. And I think if we were going to do anything powerful, magnificent, wonderful, beyond recognition, the least we could do is lead with a tough mind and a tender heart. It will change not just how we look at the world, but how we see ourselves. It will change how we talk about the work that needs to be done around servant leadership and remind us that the servant leadership that we know is to be of service to God, kind of like Martin Luther King's service-oriented mentality. He is honored on this day for not just organizing Black people. He's recognized on this day for organizing all people, for rallying around with clarity that during his assassination, he was considered an agitator in the United States, not a hero. And with the clarity that people who were witnessing him, people who were watching him, people who were taking a part in the actions that he was doing were very clear that he was also deserving, that his legacy and that his remembrance is necessary for such a time as this. If the people in the room who are watching this right now were alive when Martin Luther King was alive, you know change is possible. And we're going to rely on your knowledge. We're going to rely on your witnessing, your eye testimony. We're going to rely on you knowing the truth, that anything is possible, that all of us can make a difference. As much as he is lauded as being a hero, as we read at the end of his life and years after, he was just an ordinary man, but he did extraordinary things. I would offer, faults and all, that we also take such a challenge to rise to the occasion, to live the lives we were meant to live, to make the contributions to our world and our community that we were destined to make. I would offer that on this day, on this act of service, that we use the lens of servant leadership, that we use the parables that are helpful in tough-mindedness and tenderheartedness to continue this journey around racial justice and racial equity, that we don't fall prey to all of our past accomplishments, maybe even awards won, as job well done, that for every day that we have an opportunity, every single day that we draw breath, we make a commitment and a recommitment to changing this world into something that we can be proud of. We may not all get a day at the end of our lives, but we can all have moments throughout our lives. And after all, it is not the awards we win or the accolades or even how many people show up. It is really about us knowing before we leave this place that we have indeed had a job well done. I will leave you with my favorite Bible verse that I think is so fitting for this moment on Dr. Martin Luther King Day. It is Luke 7:22. And it states, "So he replied to the messengers, 'Go back and report to John what you have seen and heard.'" I'm going to pause there just to say, I think it's so important to know that the ask was to report back what you had seen, witnessing, and then what you heard. Because I think in such a time as this, it's important to note that we are all seeing what is happening. We are all, for those of us who were alive when Dr. Martin Luther King was alive, we certainly saw him in action and certainly witnessed the power of words in building community, a beloved community. And then it goes on to say, the blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, and the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor. When I think about the work that we can do here in St. Louis together, in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King, in furtherance of the Ferguson protests and riots, I think all of us, every single one of us, is looking forward to telling the good news. I think all of us, every single one of us, wants to share the stories of how we got to a successful end. I think all of us, every single one of us, wants to have the kind of world where we are close, connected, and clear about where we are going and going there together. I think that this can only be done with the grace of God. I think this can only be done by building community. And most importantly, I think this can only be done with a tough mind and a tender heart. My ask of you all today is to get close, not just to the people who are like you, but to people who are not like you. It is hard to witness suffering when we are near each other. And I would offer that witnessing suffering is still suffering. I would offer that what's happening now in the world is a clear indication that we are not close to each other, that we are not clear on direction, that we have failed to clearly communicate how much we need each other, and most importantly, how much we love each other. When I think about how much God loves me, if I can love you just a little bit of that deep and overflowing love, I know the world will be a better place. It has been an honor to be here with you all today. I wish we could be in person, but I'm so glad we're safe. Waiting to hear the good news from you and waiting to continue the work every day with you. Happy Martin Luther King Day.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Now may the love which heals all wounds, which overcomes all differences, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us now and always. Go in peace.